Fighters, promoting security consciousness.
Several weeks after the abductions of schoolgirls in CHIBOK, Borno State, the cry for their safe return has not abated in Nigeria and across the world.
Wherever they are not born to be in the forest. They are not born to be in the desert. They are not born to be where they are now. They are not animals. We have kept quiet.
As millions of children across the world are the challenges confronting the security agencies in this fight. How can we win the larger battle against terrorism and insurgency, both in the short and long term? We caught up with the Director of Defense Information, Major General Chris Olukolade, to get the viewpoints from the men at the front line.
Exclusive interview.
Since the incident happened and it was reported, the required military input has been deployed everywhere in search of these children. It has been constantly upgraded to meet intelligence reports as to locating them. And as at the last count, we have had 2 divisions of the Nigerian Army devoted into this search. We have mobilized all the communication facilities of the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Air Force, Nigerian Navy, and other security agencies to coordinate the communication aspect of the search. We have had a number of sorties of air flights in reconnaissance and surveillance to locate the girls. Besides that, we've had various forms of patrol on land to complement what is going on the air. So as I speak to you at the moment, we still have men on patrol from various parts of the area we believe they're likely to be located. Added to this is that all the security agencies that had locations along the border, whether they are up north or they're up south, have been alerted to link up to this search and to keep an eye on our borders to ensure that it is preserved and not violated. The facilities of the Multinational Joint Task Force, which is a force involving troops from Nigeria, Niger Republic, Chad, and some of Cameroon somehow, have equally been devoted into this search. You know that this force has jurisdiction around the Lake Chad and all the various contiguous elements of our borders to that lake have been mobilized to continue to watch that area in watching out for these children. The entire operation since the declaration of state of emergency have from day one been locating and destroying every camp that is associated with the terrorists. And that is continuing up to anywhere we sight their camp. We not only neutralize it, we ensure that they cannot put up a camp there anymore. And that's perhaps one of the features of the present situation in relation to terrorism, that they are constantly on the move and in flight. They have no base as they used to have before the declaration of the state of emergency. So every base they try to settle to do anything is almost immediately rooted out. And that has resulted in them moving from place to place, trying to do two things. One, to attack innocent citizens. Two, to make occasional, and I repeat, occasional attempt in the form of suicide missions to attack security bases. The matter of detecting their camps is a regular basis. It's no more news for us. It is improper to accuse the military of being insensitive or of being unwilling to recover these girls. It is this kind of local feelings and then a lot of hearsay and perhaps readings from critics that the Amnesty International put together to now present their own position, to allege that the military was not responsive enough and that was what led to the incident in the first place. We have reacted instantly. We know it is typical of that organization to want to implicate the Nigerian armed forces right from the beginning of this operation or any operation we're involved in. So their attitude is really not new. But in this particular instance, I want to say categorically that that allegation is false, is unfair, is intended to paint us as incompetent, incapable, and callous. I have a feeling that it has a motive. Now let me explain what actually happened. Before that incident, it has become a pattern, and not just that environment, the entire Northeast, where we are having the state of emergency, to receive a number of reports. So in any hour, you can have up to 100 reports, out of which you have numerous that turn out to be frivolous, numerous that turn out to be just stressing the troops for nothing. By the way, as a matter of policy, we always ensure that every information that comes is treated and given attention to determine its credibility. Now, in this instance, the first credible report that was received about our attack came from our own troops that were operating on the ground, our troops that were on patrol. They noticed what was going on and they responded. But in the course of responding, they discovered that it was really a big plan by these people to overwhelm the town from every angle, not just the school. So when they discovered the desperation and the level of attack, they called for reinforcement. So the call for reinforcement came actually from our own troops that were on patrol in the area. Now when they called for that reinforcement, the reinforcement, by the way, came from different places, including the divisional headquarters in Maiduguri, which is over 134 kilometers from CHIBOK. Well, when we say 134 kilometers, it's not on a smooth road, it's not on a very pleasant drive. You can imagine what it will take to get to that location. But even it was compounded by the fact that along the way, the troops that were sent were ambushed. And this is typical of the situation there. We've got a lot of ambush. So our soldiers were killed that very day while trying to respond to this call. But that did not deter us. Another set was mobilized. By the time they were getting there, they got more misleading information that, tended to guide them on a different direction from what these guys are running to. There is no way you will not continue to depend on human intelligence, so come information from people. Every intelligence is what you receive that you analyze to deduct your intelligence. So the much information we got from most of it turned out to be misleading. You should rather sympathize with the military than vilify the military as many want to do. And every explanation we give, they do for how to puncture holes into it and give the impression that we're uncaring, we're incapable, we're incompetent. It's the new unfortunate dimension that Nigerians have been misled to begin to feel a disdain for their armed forces that are doing so much sacrifice to protect people, doing so much sacrifice in that part of the Federation. We just hope that someday Nigerians will get to understand the intentions of this misinformation and unnecessary attack on the military. If you trace how the crisis had come, you will know that the first elements of engaging it had come and gotten exhausted. Virtually every security agencies have had their take in this matter. Go to that part of the Federation and count how many police stations you will find standing. Count how many immigration posts you will find standing. Count how many custom posts you will find standing. These terrorists have literally incapacitated them. And when we get to that level, when a state of emergency is declared, the military plays the lead role. We'll be hearing different kinds of interpretation of this, which very often we've tried to avoid a situation where we join issues. We want to play on intellect or matters like this. But the fact remains that the military is in this by virtue of responsibility, by virtue of directive of Mr. President and the appropriate political authorities, and is in it not alone with all other agencies that can give support. So it's not a matter of usurping the role of anybody. It's a matter of doing its constitutional duties. By the way, you will know that the constitutional duty of the Nigerian military includes suppressing insurrection. This qualifies as an insurrection. The military has a role in internal security. This one qualifies for it. So there is no usurpation whatsoever here. There's no doubt in every 12 you have Judas, but it's not as overwhelming as it has been presented, as if everybody out there is a potential saboteur. It's not at that level. Every indication of it, the system has its way of fishing them out. But at the moment, the cohesion within the system is still intact. What you have narrated as sympathizers or whatever have not had that level of overwhelming influence to disturb the ongoing operation as it has been presented very often. Beyond that, we'll see that the elevation given to this kind of story are sometimes intended to cause either disharmony or suspicion within the system, such that everybody will be suspecting the other. Now there are those who are outrightly imputing it. Those who go to the media and allege without proof. Those who will go to the media and give the impression that everything in the military is upside down. Sometimes it's of psychological intent. They have psychological harassment on the military, psychological harassment on the populace to make the populace feel unsafe. But if this is the military you are depending upon, you are no more safe. All of it are all advancing the cause of terror. What is terrorism? Terrorism is to create fear in the mind of the populace and to make the populace lose confidence in their government. This is the basic thing terrorism seeks to achieve. We have instituted an inquiry into it, which is the normal pattern in the military for every such incident or any incident whatsoever. It will not be proper for me to preempt that now. But unfortunately, it's been massively and unfortunately preempted in the media. Everybody advancing his own idea of what could have been the reason. We're expecting the reason to be established by the series of inquiries that are ongoing at the moment. I'm even reluctant to call that incident mutiny, as it has been hastily described in the media. Mutiny is not a small offense in the military. It's not what any soldier would wish to be accused of. If I tell you the punishment for mutiny, you will not pray that anybody be accused of it as a soldier. And that's why we are not hasty. We plead that the public do not become hasty, because mutiny has its punishment under military law, and the military law is recognized by the Constitution. So when that time comes and there's anybody who has to be tried for it, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. And let's not quickly impute it, and then when the time comes, we begin to try to justify it. The system will find out what actually happened. If it qualifies as mutiny, it will be tried as such. But the implication begins with the fact that terrorism in Nigeria has been adequately or perhaps appropriately internationalized, in the sense that terrorism is an international crime. It's not limited to any particular border. Now the international community has come to the realization of that, and they have thrown their weight behind Nigeria in fighting it. It's a good development, considering the fact that that's not a crime limited to a nation. The war on terrorism is not a normal war of territories. It is across the borders. And now that the international community have recognized that, everybody's input must come into it. Maybe that's one thing we achieve from them is most welcome. Now it has awoken our neighbors to be willing to collaborate with us. It has awoken people from far and near to be willing to support our efforts. So to that extent, a lot has gone into it that is encouraging, and we must appreciate it as such. It's a good prospect, indicating that with this level of mobilization, both internally and globally, terrorism will definitely be weakened until it is finally destroyed. Well, be sure that the military has its eyes opened. We are equally aware of the need to preserve our nation's integrity, our nation's sovereignty, It's good that people also have this consciousness. Perhaps that will move them not to run down their military as of no use, because this is the asset of the nation. You can't throw this military away in preference for another country. No country will give you its best. You better know that. And it's good you know that this military is yours and will continue to need your support. And that support may be what will encourage us to quickly take care of this matter and everybody return to his own. So many challenges. Number one being the lack of understanding from those that we're working for. Despite every effort to inform, to educate, the mindset could be very, very demoralizing, particularly from some elite who seek to puncture hole in everything and paint this army as incompetent, despite every sacrifice out there in the field. The military is maximizing the use of every resource made available to it by the owners of the military. I repeat, maximizing, so as not to be wasteful or be irresponsible in the use of resources. And some are taking this to mean incapacity. The military is exhibiting the best of discipline possible in the circumstance it finds itself. Now, the challenges also include the deliberate intention to rubbish the Nigerian military. Can you imagine a situation where a soldier who has not seen his family for months, who is out there in the bush, sleeping and waking up in the bush, and he just tunes his radio, and all he's hearing is somebody saying that those people are just there, they are not even working, they're just eating our money for nothing. And also the intention to turn the Nigerian military on each other. When you hear the word corruption, you are easily triggered, and that's natural. I want to tell you that within the military, there's sufficient control for use of resources that makes it extremely difficult for anybody to steal the allowance of any other. Makes it difficult for you to pick on what is available for the unit and pocket it. Many people imagine that by virtue of the discipline in the system, anything is possible and it should not be challenged. It's not always true. There's provision within the system to even raise your protest, but it will follow channel. So it's not as bad as people have tended to paint before Nigerians. Many people have questioned. We've heard of trillions going to the military. What did they do with it? They've stolen it. I tell you, it's not as easy to steal these trillions that people are talking of without even checking their records. They have not checked what is appropriated, what is eventually released. They have not checked. I'm very, very sure they've not checked. Otherwise, some of the noisy criticism will not be in that pattern. Number two, the expenditure within the military has to be understood before you embark on that criticism. Can I give you an illustration, for instance? If we put a jet on air to go on surveillance or to even go on an attack mission, from takeoff to go on that patrol and return, you will have an average of 300,000 naira fuel to move that one trip. You cannot count how many trips are moved in a day if there's an attack or if there's an attempt to go and repel an attack. Once it takes off, go and come, can't be less than 300,000 naira fuel burnt. That's one jet. Now, if you put a tank on operation for about 4 hours running around in the bush, it could not have spent anything less than between 50 and 60,000 naira fuel to move it around, one tank. Now, every bullet that we expend is nothing less. It can only be more than between 3 naira 50 kobo minimum per one bullet. You can imagine every soldier in a unit, each firing times the number that are firing for an operation of about maybe 1 or 2 hours. And it is not one. The Nigerian military is deployed in 33 states of the Federation at the moment. And there's no day they don't do one operation or the other. Now, apart from what they expend in operations, what they expend in training, when you are training those pilots, you are burning fuel. When you are training those pilots, not just burning fuel, the maintenance of the aircraft has money. When you are training those soldiers, you must feed them. When you deploy them on mission, you must feed them. By the time you put all of this together, you see that those trillions you are talking of really mean nothing. But the assumption immediately is that somebody has pocketed it. If it is pocketed as easily as it is said, everybody will be endangered. So I want to tell you that it is not as easy. Can I tell you that Sambisa forest is not like a football field? The size of that place is nothing less than 6,000 square kilometers, not less. And it flows across states into the foreign country, contiguous to mountains. Within it, you have caves. So all those descriptions. This location is peculiar. It has a peculiar terrain. And when you hear forest, it's not like the vegetation down south. Apart from that, the seasons affect their forest. There are times you cannot even move any tank there. It's so slippery, the waterlogged, and several other characteristics that makes it a very difficult terrain. And to say that soldiers are not there is one other fallacy. The soldiers are afraid to enter there. Like I said, anyone who thinks we are afraid should go and try an attempt. As I talk to the soldiers are inside that forest. They are inside, they are not in the fringes. So we should understand the expanse. It's not a football field, like I said. It's not even a track. Very, very expansive terrain. Well, our message to them is that they should believe that their armed forces is for them, is working around the clock. We share their pain, we share their concern. We are one of them. We are not foreigners. And like I said earlier, there are people who are in the armed forces who are from that community. And apart from these individuals, we have relationship with them, both before this incident and after. The people in that community have fed our soldiers. The people in that community have done good things for us. We should wish them well. So we have no reason to work against their interest. We are looking forward to the day that we'll have our girls back. Around the clock, for 24 hours, soldiers are out there. We've heard on the news several people saying that soldiers are not protecting that community. It is not true. You don't have to see them. And the soldiers are everywhere moving around looking for our girls. We are optimistic that these efforts will pay off someday. And when it does pay off, we'll remember these times and maybe we'll laugh over it. Nigerians should be fair to the Nigerian military. They should spread less of rumors about it. They should believe in it that it is a lot, it is a pack of very patriotic lot who are ready to lay down their life for this territory, Nigeria, and for the people of Nigeria. The Nigerian military is not as weak, incompetent as some seek to paint it. It has demonstrated its ability outside. It has demonstrated it inside. This will not be an exception. And we will convince Nigerians, that they have a very reliable military. We just ask for understanding. We ask that the public will believe less of frivolous reports and trust us to get them results.
Crime fighter.